The Eternal Scream of Laocoon, Art, History, and Myth of a Timeless Masterpiece. Before you twist an ancient sculptural group, a tangle of marble bodies locked in a desperate struggle. At the center, a man of formidable musculature is bent by agony. His face etched with anguish, eyes hollowed by terror, lips parted in a voiceless scream. The veins in his neck bulge, the tendons of his arms strain like ropes, while his fingers claw futilely into the flesh of two monstrous serpents coiling around him. One reptile sinks its fangs into his side, the other constricts his legs, trapping him in a lethal grip. Flanking him, two younger figures fight in vain. One, captured mid-motion, writhes to free a leg from the serpent's coils. The other, nearly spent, raises an arm in a final, desperate gesture as the snake slithers up their torso. The bodies are rendered with hyperrealism, conveying the tension of sinew, the weight of flesh, and the panic that seems to pulse beneath the marble's polished surface. The sinuous lines of the serpentine coils intertwine with the figures in sinister elegance, contrasting the violence of the scene with formal perfection. You notice a curious detail. The right arm of the central figure, originally lost, was reconstructed in a discordant pose in later eras. Only decades later was the original fragment rediscovered and reattached, revealing an even more dramatic twist, as if emphasizing the man's helplessness against fate. The work is a vortex of pathos, a moment of agony frozen forever, where art and tragedy merge timelessly. The Laocoon Group, a sculptural work of extraordinary emotive force and artistic complexity, stands as one of the most celebrated icons of classical antiquity. Its rediscovery in Rome in 1506 marked a pivotal moment for the Renaissance, influencing generations of artists and intellectuals. Today, it is housed in the Pio Clementino Museum, part of the Vatican Museums, in Vatican City. The myth of Laocoon, the priest and the Trojan horse. The story of Laocoon unfolds during the dramatic finale of the Trojan War, a decade-long conflict between the Greeks, also called Achaeans or Danaans, and the Trojans. After years of fruitless siege, the Greeks devised an ingenious strategy: the Trojan horse. This massive wooden structure was left on the beach as a supposed votive offering to the goddess Athena, while the Greek fleet feigned retreat, signaling an end to hostilities. The tale of the Trojan horse is not merely a wartime trick, but a profound symbol of deceit and false appearances. A gift concealing destruction within becomes a powerful metaphor for hidden threats, a theme directly echoed in Laocoon's warning. The deception, rooted in the Trojans' credulity and their desperate hope for peace after a prolonged war, sets the stage for imminent tragedy. Laocoon, a Trojan priest, associated with either Poseidon or Apollo, depending on the version of the myth, was the only one to discern the Greeks' ruse. He warned his fellow citizens with Virgil's famous line, "Do not trust the horse, Trojans. Whatever it is, I fear the Greeks, even bearing gifts." This phrase became proverbial, embodying skepticism towards suspicious gifts. To prove his point, Laocoon hurled a spear at the horse's flank, causing it to reverberate ominously, a sound that should have revealed the hollow interior. Despite his compelling warning, Laocoon lacked the favor of influential figures like King Priam and his son Hector. The Trojans were further deceived by Sinon, a Greek soldier posing as a deserter. Sinon spun a web of lies, convincing the Trojans the horse was a sacred offering to Athena, and that Laocoon had been punished for desecrating it. Laocoon embodies the archetype of the unheeded prophet, whose truth is drowned out by gullibility and manipulation. His spear thrust was not just defiance, but a desperate attempt to expose the physical reality of the trick, a reality ignored in favor of a more convenient narrative. The myth culminates in the horrific deaths of Laocoon and his sons, though ancient sources differ on the divine rationale for their punishment. In Virgil's Aeneid, the most famous version and the one that likely inspired the sculpture, Athena, supporting the Greeks, sent two colossal sea serpents, Porses and Cariboia, from the waters near Tenedos. The monsters slithered ashore, coiling around Laocoon and his sons, Antiphantes and Thymbraeus, crushing and biting them. This punishment was retribution for Laocoon's attempt to expose the horse's deceit, which the Greeks wanted to portray as sacred. Witnessing this gruesome spectacle, the Trojans misinterpreted his death as divine confirmation that the horse was holy, and that Laocoon had committed sacrilege. Virgil describes the scene with visceral drama. The serpents entwine their bodies, suffocating them, while Laocoon's cries are likened to the bellowing of a wounded bull fleeing the altar. This horrifying event, rather than validating his warning, convinced the Trojans to drag the horse inside their walls, sealing the city's doom. Laocoon's death is the catalyst for Troy's downfall. It is not merely an individual punishment, but a collective omen fatally misread. The Trojans' tragic misinterpretation, viewing divine wrath as proof of Laocoon's guilt rather than a warning, highlights the peril of blind faith and the destructive power of deception. Sculptural Group, History, Discovery, and Attribution. The Laocoon Group is attributed to 3 sculptors from Rhodes: Agasander, Athenodoros, and Polydoros. The dating of the work has long been the subject of intense academic debate. Pliny the Elder, in his Naturalis Historia, described it as a masterpiece housed in Emperor Titus's palace and credited it to these 3 Greek sculptors. The main theories about its dating revolve around 2 fundamental hypotheses: Roman copy of a Hellenistic original. A common theory interprets the Vatican's Laocoon as a Roman copy from the reign of Emperor Tiberius, 14 to 37 CE, based on a Hellenistic bronze original from Pergamon, circa 200 BCE or 140 BCE. This hypothesis is supported by technical details, such as the use of Luna marble, Carrara, which was not quarried before the mid-1st century BCE, and references to lost wax casting techniques typical of bronze originals. Original Augustan-era work. More recently, many scholars argue that the Laocoon Group is an original creation from the Augustan period, 40 to 20 BCE. This view is strengthened by the discovery of signatures by the same sculptors on the Odysseus and Polyphemus group in Tiberius's grotto at Sperlonga. These signatures confirm their activity and ability to produce original works for Roman imperial patrons. Inscriptions found in Lindos, Rhodes, suggest Agasander and Athenodoros were active in Rome after 42 BCE, supporting a dating of the Laocoon between 40 and 20 BCE, likely commissioned for an imperial patron. The debate over whether the work is Hellenistic or Roman is crucial not only for dating, but also for understanding its cultural context. If it is an Augustan original, it would reflect the artistic trends and imperial commissions of the era, possibly serving a political agenda to link Rome's Trojan origins, via Aeneas, to the Julio-Claudian dynasty. If it is a copy, it would highlight Roman admiration for Hellenistic art and their practice of replicating Greek masterpieces. The Sperlonga discoveries have tipped the scales toward the original Roman work theory, suggesting the Rhodian sculptors were prominent artists working in Rome on major imperial projects. The sculpture is carved from white marble, often identified as Greek Parian marble, a luxurious material. The figures are nearly life-sized, giving the group a monumental presence. The choice of Parian marble and the imposing scale underscore the work's grandeur and significance from its conception, indicating a high-status commission. The sensational discovery of 1506 and its impact on the Renaissance. On January 14, 1506, the Sculptural Group was fortuitously unearthed in a vineyard owned by Felice de Freitas on Rome's Oppian Hill, near Nero's Domus Aurea and the Baths of Titus. The discovery was immediately recognized as extraordinary. Michelangelo and Giuliano da Sangallo were among the first to view it, with Sangallo reportedly exclaiming, "This is the Laocoon, mentioned by Pliny," recognizing the work described by the Roman historian. Pope Julius II, a passionate collector of antiquities and patron of the arts, swiftly purchased the sculpture and installed it in the octagonal courtyard of the Belvedere Garden in the Vatican palaces. This installation is considered the founding act of the Vatican Museums, marking the birth of one of the world's most prestigious art collections. Alongside the Apollo Belvedere, the Laocoon became the crown jewel of the Vatican's holdings, drawing endless streams of artists, scholars, and travelers. The speed and enthusiasm with which the sculpture was identified, acquired, and displayed by Pope Julius II underscore not only its intrinsic artistic value, but also the profound cultural resonance of classical antiquities during the Renaissance. Its discovery was not merely an archaeological find, but an epical cultural event that catalyzed the creation of a modern museum institution and redefined the era's aesthetic ideals. At the time of discovery, the group lacked Laocoon's right arm and parts of the younger son. An immediate debate arose over how to reconstruct the missing arm. Although clues suggested a bent arm, as intuited by Michelangelo, the prevailing solution for centuries was an outstretched arm in a heroic, dynamic pose, a canonical interpretation. Giovanni Angelo Montorsoli crafted a terracotta integration that gained lasting acceptance. The Napoleonic Confiscation. During the Italian campaign, Napoleon imposed the Treaty of Tolentino, 1797, which mandated the seizure of Italian artworks as war spoils. The Laocoon, then housed in the Vatican Museums, was among the selected masterpieces. The statue was confiscated by Napoleon in 1798, disassembled, with Renaissance-restored arms and additions removed, and transported in wooden crates over land and sea. It was taken to Paris, where it became a source of inspiration for French neoclassicism, and remained there until 1815. After Napoleon's fall, Pope Pius VII commissioned Antonio Canova, already a celebrated sculptor and respected intellectual, to negotiate the restitution of looted artworks. Acting as a papal commissioner, Canova leveraged his international influence and the esteem he held among European courts. Thanks to his perseverance, most treasures, including the Laocoon, were returned to Italy. Canova also resisted pressure to leave some works in France, fiercely defending the integrity of Italy's cultural heritage. During overland transport in 1815, the wagon carrying the Laocoon lost control on icy terrain at the Moncenisio Pass in the Alps. The crate crashed violently, damaging the statue. Laocoon's lower torso shattered, and numerous fragments broke loose. Rescuers spent 2 days recovering the pieces. The statue was temporarily repaired with mastic to prevent further damage and arrived in Rome in precarious condition in February 1816. Canova personally supervised the restoration, removing non-original additions and returning the sculpture to a form closer to its ancient appearance. The Laocoon was reinstalled in the Belvedere courtyard, where it had been displayed since 1506, reclaiming its role as a symbol of the Vatican Museums. The missing arm and its revelations. In 1906, archaeologist Ludwig Pollack fortuitously discovered Laocoon's original right arm in a Roman stonemason's workshop. The arm was bent at the elbow, confirming Michelangelo's intuition centuries earlier. Pollack donated the limb to the Vatican, and in 1957, Filippo Maggi reattached it to the statue, restoring its original position. The story of the arm's restorations is a fascinating narrative of the evolution of art criticism and archaeological practice. The Renaissance preference for an outstretched arm reflected an ideal of heroic virtue and dynamism. In contrast, the discovery and reinstatement of the bent arm restored the sculptor's original intent, to express a more restrained pathos and introspective pain aligned with Hellenistic aesthetics. This demonstrates how interpretations of a work of art are shaped by the cultural sensibilities of each era, and how archaeological discovery can correct centuries of misconceptions. The expression of pain and dynamism. The Laocoon Group is regarded as one of the foremost examples of Hellenistic Baroque. This style, which flourished during the Hellenistic period, 323 BCE to 31 BCE, emphasizes drama, pathos, dynamic movement, and theatricality. The work captures a moment of extreme physical and emotional tension, a frozen scream of anguish in marble. The label Hellenistic Baroque is not merely a stylistic categorization, but an acknowledgement of its break from earlier classical restraint. This style allowed artists to explore the depths of human suffering and extreme passions, making the Laocoon a work that pulses with raw emotion. Its ability to evoke such a powerful emotional response is one reason for its enduring fame. The composition of the Laocoon Group is complex and meticulously calculated, despite its apparent chaos and violence. The three human figures, Laocoon and his two sons, Antiphantes and Thymbraeus, are tightly intertwined with the bodies of two sea serpents, creating a whirling, circular dynamism that draws the viewer's gaze through the scene. Laocoon, the central and dominant figure, is captured in an unstable, multi-directional pose. His torso twists obliquely as he desperately struggles to free himself from the serpent's lethal grip. His sons, slightly smaller in scale, flank him. The younger son appears lifeless or on the brink of death, fully ensnared by the serpent's coils, his body trembling faintly. The elder son gazes at his father in horror while attempting to loosen the serpent's hold on his ankle. The intertwined, multi-directional composition is no accident. It is a deliberate artistic choice to maximize the sense of struggle, despair, and motion. The size contrast between father and sons amplifies the central figure's dramatic impact, focusing attention on his torment and futile resistance. The sculpture showcases consummate mastery of anatomy and detail. Powerful, voluminous muscles, tendons, and veins are accentuated by stark chiaroscuro, creating an astonishing realism and tangible sense of physical strain. The faces are meticulously crafted. Furrowed brows, eyes narrowed or upturned, mouths agape in silent screams, and disheveled hair all contribute to visceral, immediate expressions of pain, anguish, and terror. This obsessive attention to anatomical and facial detail is not just technical virtuosity, but the primary means of conveying extreme pathos. The lifelike quality and illusion of marble, pulsing with genuine emotion, stem directly from this meticulous rendering of physical and psychological agony. The Laocoon is a masterpiece of pathos, expressing raw, realistic emotions that resonate deeply with viewers. The positioning of limbs, torsions of bodies, and intense gazes transmit a pervasive sense of anguish, making the tragedy palpably real. Laocoon is depicted at the peak of his agony. His massive frame contrasts starkly with the fragility of his sons, who writhe in helpless pleading, evoking profound empathy. The depiction of pathos in the Laocoon transcends mere mythological illustration to become a universal commentary on human suffering in the face of overwhelming, inexorable forces. The sculpture does not merely narrate an event, it invites viewers to empathetically inhabit the pain, transforming the work into a profound meditation on the human condition and the inevitability of fate. Debates on authenticity and influence on Western art. The fact that Pliny the Elder described the statue as carved from a single block of marble, ex uno lapide, while the Vatican's work is composed of at least 7 interconnected pieces, has fueled doubts about whether the Vatican's Laocoon is the original described by Pliny. This discrepancy has contributed to debates over its dating and its status as a Hellenistic original or a Roman copy. Far from being a mere technicality, the authenticity debate is central to understanding the reception, valuation of ancient art, and the sculptural practices of the era. Beyond questions of originality, interpretations of the Laocoon's meaning have multiplied and evolved over centuries. The work is seen as a representation of the struggle against fate and divine wrath, a warning about the dangers humans face and are ultimately defeated by, or a symbol of Troy's fall, Aeneas's escape, and Rome's subsequent rise. The latter interpretation, in particular, would carry strong political and propagandistic weight if the work were an imperial Roman commission, linking Rome's Trojan origins to the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Regardless of its exact origin, the sculpture has been consistently admired for its aesthetic and narrative power, proving that its profound significance lies more in its ability to evoke universal themes than in its precise historical provenance. The Laocoon's discovery in 1506 had an enormous impact, profoundly shaping Italian Renaissance art and Baroque sculpture in the following century. Michelangelo was deeply moved by the statue, calling it a miracle of art. Its tormented heroism and dynamic bodily contortions influenced his later works, such as The Rebellious Slave and Dying Slave, where poses and musculature echo the Laocoon's pathos and dynamism. The sculpture's influence extended to numerous artists, including Raphael, Titian, El Greco, and Andrea del Sarto, who studied and absorbed its lessons. Demand for replicas was immediate and widespread. For example, King Francis I of France commissioned a copy, executed by Baccio Bandinelli, now in the Uffizi Gallery, which itself sparked heated artistic debates. Francesco Primaticcio was sent to Rome to create a mold for a bronze replica destined for Fontainebleau. Another copy resides in the Knights of Rhodes Grand Palace. The sculpture captivated artists and intellectuals for centuries, including Gian Lorenzo Bernini, Orfeo Boselli, Johann Joachim Winckelmann, and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, becoming a focal point of 18th century debates on sculpture and the aesthetics of pain. The statue's tragic dynamism and depiction of suffering were central themes in Gotthold Ephraim Lessing's essay Laocoon, a landmark of art criticism that explored the limits and possibilities of different art forms. The Laocoon's dramatic emotionality and anatomical mastery set a benchmark for representing human suffering in Western art, cementing its status as a cornerstone of artistic tradition. The Laocoon Group stands as a work of art of immeasurable historical, mythological, and artistic value. It is not merely a depiction of an ancient myth, but a timeless meditation on the human condition, struggle, emotion, and resilience that continues to resonate with viewers across generations.